As someone who grew up during the heyday of 16 to 32-bit games, I couldn't help but become enamored with 2D action platformers. Castlevania Symphony of the Night was a monumental title when it released in 1997, and to this day many games try to emulate its success. In a sense, Symphony of the Night became the grandfather of the Metroidvania genre. Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder is the latest to try to bottle some of that magic, but it also takes inspiration from other games of the era while offering a steampunk aesthetic, which has taken on a life of its own over the last few decades. But is Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder a steaming pile of crap, or is it a real Cinderella story? Let's find out in our full review. Real quick, why don't you light our fire by liking and subscribing, heading over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames where you can gain Discord access and more, or hanging out with Gamer Ghoulfriend now Tuesdays and Thursdays right here or on twitch.tv/idreamofindiegames. Your new indie gaming community is waiting for you. In Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder, the heavens are quite literally torn down the middle. This event comes to be known as the Calamity. I swear I've heard that somewhere before. Comment below if you know where, because I'm old and I forget things. Anyways, this opened up a portal into the dark abyss, setting free all manners of demons and putting humanity at risk even further. But the humans did what humans usually do and found it within themselves to fight back, claiming the power of the abyss. Unfortunately, such a power comes at a cost, turning many of the weaker humans into demons themselves. Years go by and the Vanguard, a group of warriors, are ready to put an end to this threat once and for all. From here we are introduced to our protagonist, Alethea, a fiery red-haired hero tasked with doing a lot of dirty work that gets caught up in a greater conspiracy, which becomes a sticky web of plotlines that goes completely off the rails from there. Characters are introduced at a rapid-fire pace in what feels like an attempt by the writers to cram in as much story as they can in a rather brief campaign that clocks in at a meager 7 hours without the side quests. Tack on maybe 3 more if you want to go do those. The game wants to tell a grandiose story and shoves a seemingly endless stream of dialogue down the player's throat. Unfortunately, this dialogue was in desperate need of an editor or translator as it's riddled with spelling errors, typos, and general nonsense. Regarding the gameplay, Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder feels like a combination of Symphony of the Night and has some of the platforming elements of the Mega Man X series. You'll slash at foes with your sword, rebound off of walls, air dash, and eventually double jump your way through Metroidvania-like labyrinths. The game also features a leveling system as you'll gain experience by mowing down your foes. Adding a bit of a twist is Alethea's gun, which is powered by gathering energy from foes or from mechanical vials strewn about the map. The more you attack, the more energy you'll build up. Some mechanics with the gun are pretty cool later on in the game, like the ability to charge it up and break down certain enemies' armors. As you level up, there is a skill tree where you can unlock even more abilities and become powerful. The skill tree is somewhat open, but still somehow felt like it followed a linear path. To be honest, due to the relatively short runtime of the game, I didn't find it necessary to really branch out from the path I was on, since I basically unlocked everything by the end of my playthrough anyways. Some of the abilities are cool and will even add additional combos, but the combat never becomes as thrilling as it could because the enemy AI is completely brain dead. It's some of the worst AI I've encountered in a while. You can easily manipulate them into beatable patterns that don't really require any of the skills you've unlocked. Occasionally there is an enemy that you have to use the gun on, but that's about it. A simple swing and a roll is easily enough to outwit the majority of the enemies in the game. You'll also have healing and other potions, plenty of them, which takes out a fair bit of the sense of danger and urgency, even going into the boss battles. The bosses could best be described as simplistic Mega Man encounters with mechanical movement patterns that are quite easy to master. These bosses are about as bright as a movie theater, and that's being generous. Because of this, death is a rarity, typically attributed to cheap wall spikes or an oversight on my part. I think a few of my deaths arose from sheer boredom, as the dull combat took the fight right out of me. So while that combat is a bit dull, the platforming is actually one of the stronger elements of the game. Wall jumping feels quite good, as does air dashing. The game controls well, with precise movements, and some of the maps are quite enjoyable to explore. There are secrets to uncover scattered across the various locations that include various upgrade points and treasures, and there's even a main town hub of sorts where you can pick up optional bounty quests and even purchase some items. Later into gameplay, a fast travel system is eventually unlocked that helps a little bit with backtracking, and in the meantime there are a good number of save points, though sometimes in the early game they felt a little bit further apart than I would have preferred. One of the weakest aspects of Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder would be its built-in map, which Not to be funny, looks like it was designed in MS Paint. It's never as easy as it should be to find your next location. The legend isn't all that helpful either, and as fun and wonderful as this game's visuals are, the map serves as a stark contrast. There is a built-in journal that does a halfway decent job of at least outlining your quests, but overall the menu designs don't hold a candle to the in-game presentation, which is exceptional. The animations in this title impress right from the get-go. You'll take in Alethia's flowing locks, there's creative locations full of cogs and other steampunk stuff, the enemies look straight out of Mad Max, and the portrait art is really well done, though these portrait arts could have used a few more expressions to liven things up. Even still, the lighting and atmosphere of the game are top-notch. Whether you're in an ember red construction zone or a deep purple scrapyard, the pixel art is just jaw-dropping. And it's the soundtrack that steals the show here. It is every bit as grandiose as the game's storytelling wishes it were. It has an industrial symphonic sound to it that booms with bass and is punctuated with mechanical percussion. There is a bit of a western steel guitar flair to it at times, while other moments showcase more of a classical sound with strings. Sound effects are great too, with hard-hitting slashes and clings against metal shining through the soundtrack. Honestly, it was one of the better sounding games of the year with a soundtrack that could easily be enjoyed outside of the gameplay. Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder is a good game that flirts with being a great one, and that's perhaps the most frustrating part of my experience with it. I see the potential for what this title could be with a better story, a bit more challenge, and a decent map, but you just won't get those things currently. Yet, for all its flaws, I had a good time playing it. The world itself is just so inviting that it was hard not to see it through to the end, and it didn't take all that long either. If you can get past some of its imperfections, Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder is a decent addition to your Metroidvania library. I'm gonna award this one the Bronze Genie Lamp of approval.